Hello, everyone. It is 2022. Patrick here. It's January 14th. I am 14 days into the month and I haven't done any YouTube video yet or market report video yet. It's sort of a combo pack of excuses, and I was away and there was a bit of COVID stuff sprinkled in and some technical stuff, but regardless, here I am. I wanted to do a brief sort of video today looking at what's going on. In the past, it was always tricky because we have all these cities in Niagara, right? Where it was like, you know, what's going on in Fort Erie, what's going on in Thorold, what's going on in Lincoln, Niagara Lake. Now this strange thing has happened where sort of the same market influences and market dynamics are happening. Doesn't matter where you look in the region, north, south, east, west, sort of the same things have been happening as far as supply and demand, days on market, pricing. The whole thing is behaving very similarly. So that almost makes this a little bit easier. So I wanted to cover two things today. First thing is a recap of 2021. And again, very sort of homogeneous market last year. So I'm going to just look at the big points of the big picture. And then secondly, what's going on right now, currently today, January 14th, because you ask any realtor, the market over the last week was different than the market the week before that, which was different than the market in December. It consistently reinvents itself. So I want to look at those two things. Again, last year's recap and what's going on right now. Okay, let's go. All right, I've said it a ton before, but I'll say it again. Whether you're selling a basketball or a used bike or a house, it's always supply and demand. That's everything. That's the be all and end all of any marketplace. And 2021 in particular was a case study in supply and demand. What we're experiencing right now is a case study in supply and demand. So when you go back and you look at what happened last year in 2021, it really was all about relentless demand and then how inventory kept up. One of the big misconceptions I keep hearing is that inventory last year was terrible. There's not enough supply. I guess technically, yes, there wasn't enough supply to feed the demand, but the reality is that the new listing inventory sort of hovered around what was normal, give or take 5-10%. You know, some months it was up here, some months it was down there, but it was somewhat normal. What was abnormal was the demand, the number of homes sold. Some months was 60, 70, 79% above what was normal. So when we look at the 10-year average for the number of homes sold, the 10-year average for the number of homes listed, what happened? And when you look at quarter by quarter, so the first 3 months of the year, so January, February, March, April, May, June, July, blah, 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 you get the point. When you look at the number of new listings for each quarter against the number of sales for each quarter, I'm going to show you right here how that happened. So you see in Q1, the number of new listings were 19% above normal. The number of sales were 59% above normal. So again, listings 19% above normal, awesome, right? But sales were 59% higher than normal. So that was a market that was just absolutely amped up. It was record setting. It was off to a blistering pace. Second quarter, new listings came down a bit, up 12%. Number of sales came down a bit, up 41%. Still an elevated market. So that first 6 months, the first half of 2021 was a really unbelievable market. It was mayhem. Things settled down in the summertime. Remember when COVID restrictions eased and everybody went off to a cottage or a barbecue or a game or a trip or whatever it was? So real estate sort of fell down the list of priorities, right? So as a result, we saw the lowest activity of the whole year, July and August in particular. So new listing inventory in the third quarter was negative 4%, while the number of homes sold was 12% above normal. So again, just sort of a blah 3-month segment, but rightfully so, right? Everybody went out and had some fun. And then along came Q4, October, November, December of 2021 was bonkers. So the new listing inventory was 7% higher. That's not terrible, but the number of sales were 34% higher than normal. So the new listing inventory did not stand a chance. There's no way it's going to keep up with that demand. So as a result, you had all these people looking for a house, and there was only this many houses to buy. So you had 15 offers and 16 offers and 20 offers, and buyer frustration and prices that were up here instead of being up here. So it was a very strange time. So this graph here shows you supply for each month going back to April of last year against what the 10-year average was. So you can see the last 4 months of 2021, how supply was basically at the average for the last 10 years. And then this graph shows you that same thing going back to April every month compared to what was normal for that month for the number of homes sold. And you can see April was absolutely monstrous. See how far April 2021 was above the average? And even though it came down, it's still running 5, 10, 15, 20% above normal month in and month out. So to show you how incredible the end of 2021 was, and the reason I talk about the end of 2021, because it really set the table for what we're seeing right now. So when you look at the end of 2021, we're going to look at the number of sales against the number of new listings on one graph, and here. So you're going to see what happened in December. The number of homes sold in December were above the number of homes listed. I can't remember what's the number. Yeah, 518 sales against 436 new listings. So for every person that wanted to buy something, there was only 0.9 house, right? So usually you would see about 1.5 to 1. So if you had 150 listings, you'd have 100 sales. So there's always that little bit more on the shelf to carry forward for the next people, right? But instead we had a deficit, we had negative. And you can often see that in the month of December, but you only see that in really strong markets. Like the 2016 market did that, 2020 did that, but in a more normal market like in 2018 or 2014, 15, 17, whatever, that didn't happen. So if that happened for multiple months in a row, that would be a huge problem, right? But the reality is for the month of December, it was more than, and the kicker was for the month of October, November, December, the fourth quarter of 2021, the number of new listings and the number of sales were actually pretty close to identical. So for a 3-month segment, there was no surplus. There was nothing left on the shelf. Every house that was listed was sold, listed, sold, listed, sold. There was nothing left over. And when that happens for 3 months in a row, you get what we're experiencing right now. So that supply and demand thing is what determines prices, right? And what happens with prices last year? Everybody knows roughly what happened, but the exact numbers. Across all of Niagara, the average sale price for a house in every city was up between 25 and 31% for the year, which is the highest yearly average increase on record for every city. The only two cities that weren't, Font Hill was up 22% and Niagara-on-the-Lake was up 18%. They are the two highest priced markets in Niagara. So, they can only grow so much before, so 18% of $1 million is a lot of dough as opposed to 18% of 600 grand. Still, you get the point. But yeah, I'm going to show you here every city's annual average sale price and that increase in comparison to 2020. And again, you're going to see every market up 25 to 31%. And then, so what did it, in comparison to the last few years, I think that's really what tells the story. For the entire Niagara region, the entire residential real estate market, 2019, the average sale price was 458 grand. 2020, it was 555, and then 2021, it was 709,000. So we went from 458,000 average sale price to 709 in 2 years. I don't know why I did this, but if you look at the average sale price growth in 2021, it works out to about $422 a day. So your house went up in value by $422 every day, every week, every month. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add that up, you get a difference of 555 grand to 709,000. And then the other piece that everybody talks about, everybody knows about, you might be watching this and you might not be in a house. You might be trying to get a house and you're banging your head against the wall, right? So when you look at the affordability piece, that's the other one that you ask any realtor, they would love to see a market that lets people get into it. And it's super tricky to navigate and figure out how to manage in it. But when you look at in the last couple of years, the number of homes sold over 500,000 and how that segment of the marketplace is completely eroded. 2019 sales under 500,000 accounted for 70% of all sales in the Niagara region. 70% of all sales in 2019 were under 500 grand. 2020 it came down to 52% of all sales, so roughly half. In 2020, roughly half of all sales were under 500 grand. And then here, or just in 2021, the year past, 24% of all sales. So we went from 70% of all sales under 500 grand to 24% of all sales under 500 grand in the span of 2 years. So that's a carpet pulled out from under your feet kind of market change if you've been saving up and doing all the right things to get into home ownership, and then that happens. It is tough. And so when you add all that up, you also get a really historically quick market. The market over the last 5 years behaved kind of like an anthill as far as days in the market. So In 2016, the days in the market, the average time to sell was 21. 2021, the average days was 21. So 3 weeks basically on average for the whole market, 10,000 sales for a home to sell on average was 21. That is fast. When you look at the peak of the anthill was in 2019, it was 55 days. So almost 2 months on average to sell a house. Only 2 years ago, last year was 21 days. And then that brings us to the market right now. You know, what's going on here, January 14th, 2022. By the time this video comes out, it's going to be January 15th or 16th, but you get the point. And the market right now is I've been at this since 2003. It's unlike anything I've seen. It's really, you talk to a veteran realtor who's been in the business for a long time. You talk to somebody who's been in for a year. Everybody's sort of trying to figure out where, you know, true north is, because, you know, establishing value when you see a house that didn't sell all last year for $390 something sells for $540 last week or this past week, and you look at it, $540, how does that even make sense, right? So it's hard to get true value on stuff right now when you think you've got your hand on, you know, your head wrapped around it, and then that sale happens and you say, what, how did that happen? And so the market right now really is the product of three variables. And I think that's what's driving this whole thing. And it's temporary, but I think that's what's happening right now. Variable one is what I just talked about. What happened in the last 3 months of 2021 was a compounding effect, where every month there was more and more buyers who didn't get something, and the lineup grew and the lineup grew and the lineup grew. And it's like not cutting your grass in the spring. Every day it gets a little bit longer, right? So every day that compounding issue increased. And then that came into the month of January, which the second variable is it's a low listing month. You know, a lot of people don't put up their houses for sale in January. It's not an active month historically. So as a result, you've got relentless demand queuing up at the end of the year. And then you come into January, a historically slow month anyway. And then the third variable, which we all know we're all living right now, is COVID. So then you have all these people who are saying, well, I'm not putting my house up for sale right now. So that supply thing becomes even worse when you have a whole demand side of people who didn't get a house, or it's like, I got to get this house before rates go up or before X, Y, and Z happens, and they want to lock something down. So you have this competitive market that comes into COVID, that comes into a low inventory time, and you get, you know, what I was just talking about as far as pricing and supply and demand and all that sort of stuff. So you need only look at the last, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 days. So if you look at the last 7 days in all of Niagara, there's 131 homes sold the last 7 days. Year to date, we're a little bit under last year's sales numbers, but not that bad. But the last 7 days, 131 homes sold. I'll put it there. Average asking price, $768,000. The average sale price over the last week was $814,000 for those 131 sales. So that's 106% of asking price on average. The entire real estate market of Niagara last year, 2021, 10,049 sales on average was, I think, was 103.4% across that entire group. We may never see that happen again, to have that big a volume of sales sell for 103 point something percent of asking. I'll probably be proven wrong, but that's my theory. And so how does 131 sales sell for 106% of asking? 814,000 days in the market is like 3 hours. How does that happen? Well, a huge piece, and we've talked about it before, is out-of-market buyers are driving this are the fuel in this tank, right? So the question is, how does this happen over the last 7 days to have 131 homes sold at 106% of asking at 814,000? And we've talked about it lots of times before, and a big piece, that the fuel in the tank of this market is buyers from out-of-market coming down, whether they're buying as an investment, they're buying as to live here, you know, remote workers, retirees, empty nesters, baby boomers. Investors are a huge piece of that puzzle. But I just ran the quick numbers. 83 of those 131 sales were out-of-market brokerages from outside of this area. And it's funny, we have this discussion. Actually, I put a blog out the other day, I'll link it below, about local sellers being concerned about how we're going to reach out-of-market buyers. You know, how are you going to reach the Toronto buyer? How are you going to reach the out-of-market buyers? 63% of sales over the last 7 days were out-of-market buyers. So whether your agent is in that market where those buyers are coming from is irrelevant, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, so 83 of 131 sales were out of market brokerages, which is, I think that's pretty incredible. I was tracking it back in December and it was sitting around 50%, so 63% over the last week. Again, it's just 1 week, but that's a big piece of the puzzle to look at. So I think I'm going to wrap it there. So that gives you the handle on where supply and demand was last year, how incredibly strong the demand was at the end of last year, and how listings have tapered off as they normally do this time of year as we came into COVID, and that demand is still left over, and that's what's feeding this incredible fuel, this incredible market that we're seeing right now that's sitting at 106% of asking. So if you see a house come up for $599, it's not going to sell for $599. There's a good chance it's going to get $750 or $760. So this is where a realtor getting the real scoop on what's going on is so important, because there's the predictability piece is sort of out the window right now. It'll come back, but right now the way things are, it's pretty harried out there. Okay, so that's a wrap. Any questions, you are always welcome to reach out. I've heard from a bunch of you over the break, and a few asked where our videos were, so I really appreciate that. I love hearing from people out there. If you have questions, you can always shoot us a message, whatever profile or platform this is getting to you on. We're happy to help. On our website, I will link it below. You can check out our blog. We put out all kinds of stuff regarding the market, home selling, how-tos, data, all that kind of stuff. And then also our market insight page, and that tracks every city in Niagara, the sale price, the number of listings, the number of sales, and then it gives you some kind of historical average on depending on what it's looking at. Right now, it's just the 2021 number. So if you want to see what happened in every city in Niagara, hop on there, and you can see all the data right there on your screen. Otherwise, you can subscribe to this channel to stay in touch and keep up to date with what's going on in the Niagara real estate market. Okay, I think that's a wrap. I covered a lot. That was pretty quick. You can always rewind and pause and slow it down. Actually, I had somebody say my videos are better when you speed them up. So, hey, you do what you do. Okay, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you joining me. Again, you subscribe, hit that whatever button that the kids do, and you'll be good to go. Okay, cheers. Thanks so much. See ya. Bye.